If anybody's here to speak under public comment, I need you to fill out one of these forms and place it in the basket next to the city managers.
It's being really weird. Come on, buddy. There we go. Okay,
Are we on?
you should be set.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Summer. I'm going to call our first, well, not really our first, but our first regular meeting of the Moab City Council on January 23rd, 2024 at 6:01 p.m. We have our new city council members at the dais with us. We're excited to have you on board, Colin Topper and Caitlin Myers. So welcome. And we also have our city attorney, Lisa Watts-Baskin, on Zoom. And so for you guys, so just so you know, Lisa comes to our second meeting and Nathan, who you met at Strategic Plan, comes to our first meeting. So with that, I'm going to ask you two to lead us in the pledge tonight.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is public comments. If you would like to make a public comment, please complete the form at the desk in front of us and put it in the basket. We have two public hearings this evening. If you're here to talk about anything as part of the public hearing, you can do that during public comments, but just indicate that that's what you're talking for. And I'm just going to open it up now to public comments. And I know I see two people filling out forms. And so I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. Yes. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. If you would like to,
Recently,
could you sit at the table and state your name?
okay, I'm Jean West.
Okay.
I live in the county, not in the city, but I recently sent a letter to the mayor, to city council, and to the rec department and got no answer. I'd like to know why.
We don't generally respond to questions at this time. We just are here to listen to the public.
Okay, it wasn't, it really wasn't a question, but it was a request for an apology to Stacy Sheets. And I'd like to know if she was ever apologized to for her treatment at the pool.
You're welcome to reach out to staff to get that question answered.
Another question, would you ever put on the agenda a clubhouse for people with disabilities?
Again, you're welcome to reach out to staff to have that question answered.
Okay.
David.
Just have it in writing on this handshake, and I won't go into detail at all, but the writing does have details. Like a couple subjects. One had to do with the bid. And there was a bid on Mill Creek and Pack Creek stewardship, a bid that I kind of saw some flaws that the city should maybe consider adopting standards similar to the state that deal with competition, fairness, and transparency. And my brother bid on this project. He owns BioWest, and he doesn't really care what happened. He has plenty of work to do. The only thing that he cared about is he spent time on something that he felt they didn't provide rankings, and that was one of the things that they said in the bid, that they would rank the projects and have a process. And there was several requests on the rankings. I even made a grandma request. And I just kind of get ignored, or you get answers that it doesn't meet some state rule. And so I just kind of wrote some things about this. And I looked up the city's purchasing policies, and it just doesn't seem to have the same kind of language that the state has, and they could probably use it. So what I'm getting at is probably their decision was right on the bidder, but the preparation and the process was what I felt was wrong. So that's all I have for that. And then on the back side, there's a complaint about 2 city hiring processes were used to hire the Parks and Recreation and Trails Director. I applied for that position, doing it the regular application process that was, and then after I applied for the job, then later on, I get a letter saying you need to apply again with a consultant. And so there's a whole different set of questions and things. And then, I knew that Patrick Trim and Stacy Sheets applied. And I find out from Stacy that they didn't have to go through that other process. And so throughout my history with the city, they wrote things to me in a contract saying he said, you've been ripped, and so you can apply for city positions and those kind of things. They would send me notices. They didn't talks about me talking to the consultant, and he says that I wasn't as qualified as the other applicants. And then he said, you should have applied for a different position. I didn't know what he's talking about. And I look it up and I find out it's a position that was declared non-essential in 2015. And I suffer deeply from that decision. Am I done?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Anyway, that's all on the back.
Oh, great. Thanks, David. Anybody else that would like to speak under public comments? All right. We will close the public comment section and move on to our consent agenda. We have several items on this agenda. One is the approval of the appointment of the 2024 Mayor Pro Tem, and I am recommending the council support my appointment of Jason Taylor. We also are approving the appointment of council member to review the city bills, and I'm recommending Colin Topper for that. I know that he's already had an opportunity to do that, and my understanding is this was a big one, and it won't be so big for the rest of the year. So, so thank you both for considering these appointments. Also approving the Community Renewable Energy Act Board member appointment. That's Caitlin Myers. This is now called the Utah Renewable Communities. Ratification of the City Council Board and Committee assignments that we've gone through in the past. And then the approval of 3 minutes from our December 12th meeting in 2023, January 11th, January 12th, which is our special meeting for the strategic plan. And then approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $1,784,430.76. And the reason that this amount is so high is because we didn't have a meeting, several meetings. And so, so this is for, I think, 4 to 5 billing cycles. So I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Tawny. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Luke. Discussion, Tawny?
Nope.
Luke?
Nope.
Anybody else?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, guys. Looking forward to having you work on these committees. If anybody in the public is interested in what committees they serve on, please go online to our agenda section and you can get that list. Next, we've got Lex, and he's here to give us an update on the Moab Police Department on training schedules from last year and what you're planning for this year.
Yes. Good evening. This isn't going to be too in-depth, but it's always nice to hear what we're doing as far as training and what we're required to do, and for those, people to understand that we try to go way above and beyond that. Quickly review what we've done so far in 23, 24. Our training cycle is the same as a fiscal cycle, July 1 to June 30th. That's how peace officer standards and training works. They require 40 hours of training and 16 hours of specific arrest control, de-escalation, mental disorder, and then 1 hour sex abuse training, an hour of special needs, and then you can do 23 hours of your own agency specific. Our average officer will attend 115 hours worth of training this calendar year or this training year. And most will be well above that. We have several that have gone to specialized schools, leadership schools. We've got a lot of them that are now attending training programs so that they can teach us, bring them back here to do that. So a quick review, we do firearms once a quarter, day and a night qualification, and that has a lot of different value to it, but it makes sure that we're all able to protect ourselves and everybody else as we do that. And then we know how to access our equipment. We actually just started remodeling our range. Domestic violence training, these are what we've done already. We did about 8 hours worth of that. It says 4 here. CIT Academy is a 40-hour training that all officers went to. It's crisis intervention techniques. You get all of the state required 16, 17 hours in that 40-hour class. And we'll try to do that annually. It's only required once in your career, but it's very valuable. And we were able to host it here and bring the sheriff's office on board. So that was a really good opportunity for all of us. We do TASER recertification, which we do every year. Autism awareness, we had a great class this year. We'll repeat it next year with a couple individuals in our community. A young man who has Asperger's and answered questions for us from his personal perspective. And it was actually one of the most powerful trainings we've ever had and most beneficial. And he's going to do that for us ongoing basis. It was really great. Courtroom testimony we did in November. We did EMT and advanced medical training. Moab being the size that it is, all of us go on every incident that occurs. We all need to know how to treat somebody with some advanced medical training until we get the specialists there. Legal update, we'll do that every year after legislative session. I just did one. Wet lab we did in November. That's DUI. That's where we have people come and consume alcohol in a controlled environment. Then we test them to learn how they react at different types of training, so we can identify what horizontal gaze nystagmus looks like, and then different body types and different metabolisms, react differently with alcohol. So it's a hands-on training. That's one of the more interesting ones. We do a lot of sex assault and trauma-informed response training here. We utilize our partner agency, CCAVN, Four Corners, and we've got a great partnership going. We did force-on-force live scenarios, which involve, we pick scenarios that happened in our community over the year, and then we break them down and create a training scenario out of them. And these are force-on-force means we use less lethal simunition rounds or other rounds. So you actually get hurt if you mess up, but it kind of teaches you to pay attention to those things. But we'll work through things that happen in our community so that we can react to those better or differently in the future, or at least know how to do those. They're a lot of fun, something that we're going to continue to do a lot more with. We just did some report writing with the attorney, with Stephen Stocks' office here. Just keep us up to date on that. We had suicide prevention and Narcan training. We have de-escalation coming up next week. It's an 8-hour training, and then mental health for 4 hours with Four Corners coming up. That's this year. What we try to do is do all the training when it's cold, when it's a slow season, as much as we can. And then during the summer, when we're busy, we do less training and more operational stuff. But we'll kind of repeat that schedule, I think, for the foreseeable future. So there'll always be a legal update once legislative session finishes up, because there's always something that changes. We need to be up to speed. Domestic violence, we actually do that a lot more than annually. We do that more than quarterly, because there are always changes or tweaks, or we observe an issue, or we change something on our lethality assessment because we've seen an area where it could improve. We have one of the best systems in the state. And we do dual lethality assessments, which a lot of agencies don't even consider doing. So today's victim may be tomorrow's suspect. You just never know how those situations will do. So we try to do them on both people. Gives us a lot more information to work with. Recertify on our taser. Anybody that wants to come to any of these trainings, by the way, council members, we welcome you to come. We won't tase you unless you want to be tased.
Are you sure?
An option.
Can we make a request?
Can we nominate someone to be tased?
I think, yeah, there might be a waiver that I need you to sign first. Autism training, we're gonna have that same young man come back. We're gonna do a lot more advanced medical training. TCCC is tactical casualty care, which is an advanced medical training for all of our people, something that usually just SWAT team medics will receive. We're trying to get ourselves trained to advanced levels across the board. We're gonna do more sex assault. A-RIDE is another DUI enforcement training, but this centers on narcotics and substances other than alcohol. So DUI metabolite could be a number of things, but that's specialized training that takes a lot of work to identify some of those, the way people react to different ones. We'll do another wet lab. Again, that's a volunteer thing. If anybody wants to play, you're welcome to come and help us out with those scenarios. We'll pick out everything that some of the items or the incidents that happen in the city again, and we'll dissect those. We debrief things daily, but some of the bigger, scarier incidents, we will review those. What's not on here, then there's report writing, de-escalation that we'll do. What isn't on here is we did an active shooter training in the fall. We'll do another large active shooter training towards the end of the school year. We hope it may or may not be at one of the schools, but we'd like to involve more. Last time we did a lot of the community involvement, but this time we'd like to involve even more of the community as far as city roads and different departments that will probably likely help us when we do that. But last time we had national parks, BLM. So we're going to look to create another one of those here in the spring as well. So we'll finalize that schedule in the fall, but the bottom line is, you know, we're required to have 40 and then 16 specialized, and we triple that usually, and then add to that specialized training. Questions?
Questions for the chief?
And I am serious about coming to training, you guys.
Yeah.
Love to.
I'd be interested in that. I have one question, partially related to training, but kind of specifically related to post as strategic planning. And when we were talking about the property tax, you mentioned that bringing on a new officer would cost $500,000.
It's about 2.
200. Yeah, it's about 200.
To either way, I know there are a lot of questions from the public. I know that going to post is part of that. I was wondering if you could just, for the record, kind of explain that a little bit further.
Yeah. So post actually does not cost us for them to attend. It does cost us per diem or food. They house our candidates now for free. We don't pay for the academy, but we pay them a salary while they're in training for 16 weeks, and then the food budget while they're at post. Ongoing trainings, a lot of these do cost the agency money to bring in a trainer. Sometimes Moab, it's really actually beneficial. It's a great place to host a training. A lot of people, instructors, want to come here to teach, so we're able to bring them here. But as far as getting, I guess, an officer hired and certified and on the road. So there's about 4 to 5 months worth of training before an officer is on his own. And then when we include the vehicle cost, the cost of his training, salary, benefits, it sounds a lot more expensive than what he actually gets paid in the long run. The other benefit is when we have on paper a new full-time police officer, it's about 6 months till we see the benefit of that full-time police officer, because he's going to be either in training, he or she's going to be in training for 4 months and then doubled up with somebody for another 2. So it's a long process to actually add that full body that shows on paper.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
It's interesting about police officers, and this isn't really about the training, but it's public safety. They're a little more expensive per employee because our contribution to URS is much more than a typical employee too. So that's why the benefit load for police officers is typically bigger.
Yeah.
And it's something like 200,000 per rather than like 150, 140 for a different employee.
Thanks. Any other questions for the chief?
No, just thanks for, this is a lot of training. It's good to see.
Yeah,
Agree.
we're trying to pride ourselves on leading the way in that regard.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good
it's
job.
something council wanted from us for a couple of years, and hopefully we're starting to see, I think, a return on investment in the really intensive training and professionalism brought by Lex and Jared.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Next up, general business. We have our first public hearing, and this is actually the first public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. We'll have another one, if there's a grant awarded, we'll have another one in the spring. And so I am going to open up the CDBG, the first CDBG 2024 public hearing for the city of Moab. And the purpose of this hearing is to provide citizens with pertinent information about the block grant program and to allow the discussion of possible applications for the 2024 funding cycle. The grant money must be spent on projects benefiting primary low and moderate income persons. The Southeastern Association of Local Governments, which the city of Moab is a member, is expecting to receive $1,056,986 in this program this year. All eligible activities that can be accomplished under this program are identified in the CDBG Application Policies and Procedures Manual, and interested persons can review it at any time. Eligible activities include, but are not limited to, the construction of public works and facilities, water, sewer lines, fire stations, acquisitions of property, or the provision of public services such as food banks or homeless shelters. In the past, the city of Moab received 2 CDBG awards for the Center Street Gym, Wheelchair Lift, and Housing Authority of Southeastern Utah Cane Creek acquisition. And the city of Moab has handed out its capital investment plan as part of the regional consolidation plan. This list shows which project the city has identified as being needed in the community. So now I'll open up this public hearing at 6:23. And any questions or comments from the public during this hearing, you need to identify yourself by your name, and the recorder will include your name in the minutes. So for council, I think I mentioned this to you. This is really a review. It's really a listening session. And so we will not be taking any action on this public hearing tonight. So I'm going to open it up for public comment, public hearing.
My name is Olivia Bone. I've been a longtime resident of Moab. I don't know what you meant by city center gym.
The city center gym is just right next door, and that's where there's a lot of activities, recreational activities that take place over there.
Oh, and so what was the plan with that one?
There is no plan. It's on our capital improvement list, and that it has been funded in the past.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I
That's
just didn't
okay.
Get that.
Okay, no problem. Yes? Jean,
Grant,
could you please state your name?
I'm Jean West, and on this grant, you mentioned things like homeless shelter, blah, blah, blah. I have a daughter with a disability. She's 42 years old and has never received, well, we did the Special Olympics and we had Tippecanoe. At one time, we had a clubhouse, which is now the Travel Council, I think. For some reason, Moab got the building. We have no program for our children here because we have no place for them to go if they congregate. So for a while, I had somebody driving down from Blanding to take care of her 3 days a week. Could there be monies for a facility for our people with disabilities, not mentally ill, or like, what is the other one? Just for our kids with disabilities. where they could go and interact with their peers.
There is funding available for those kind of programs, I'm sure.
And who would I go to find out what fundings are available, and where would you look for housing for such a facility? It would have to be handicap accessible, and all those things. But Moab City over the years has not given my daughter anything beneficial, or her peers. And she was born here, went to school here. And I can name on one hand 3 times I've asked for something, and all 3 times they told me no. We can't do it. It's not in the budget. But it's about time you recognize these people, especially, and I'm always told, well, it's just her. Well, she's one, but she's my most important one. And she and the other kids that are here deserve something. A place to land. If we could get a clubhouse, we may be able to hire people to actually work with our children. So that would be my request, is that you look into getting something for our children, for our adults. She's not a child, she's 42 years old. But I'd like to see something done for them.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jean.
Hi, Council. My name is Brianna Boker. I'm the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Director for the City of Moab. I do want to go ahead and pass out a document. I wanted you guys to have something to hang on to and be able to look back on today. Right. So to preface, I don't expect us to review this entire document today, but it does include some data that, you would have an opportunity to kind of look back on. And I've made sure that our city recorder has this to be able to be posted to the minutes for the public as well. The Parks, Recreation, and Trails Department is putting in a bid for the CDBG grant fund, the funding application for this year. And I wanted to kind of talk about, what our proposal is for that project. Essentially, we are looking for additional funding to support the Swanee Park Playground redesign project. The funding would be primarily going towards upgrades that would allow for all abilities access. This is something that's, definitely needed in our community. It's identified in the Parks Recreation Master Plan. Currently, we have just 2 facilities under the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Department that allow access, one of them being Lions Park, although that doesn't have any, actual play structures that are all abilities access, and then the other one being the golf course. So there is a definite need for essentially, a highlighted playground in our area to be able to provide this access not only for our community, but for the tourists and travelers that come in to visit our spaces as well. So the first page of the packet essentially gives you a brief synopsis of the vendor that we have chosen to move forward with in terms of the Swanee Park redesign and why we've chosen that vendor. This vendor in particular has a really excellent program for all abilities playground access. They have a program called Me Too and Two Play Together, which focuses on evidence-based design and programming considerations. And they partner with the Utah State University Center for Persons with Disabilities and Lecotech to help champion inclusive play initiatives across the world. So I just learned this fact this week, which is really exciting. Swanee Park has an estimated 180,000 visitors per year that visit that park site. Taking into consideration that about 85 out of every 1,000 children are diagnosed with a disability, be it cognitive or physical, that means about 15,300 children with disabilities visit that particular park annually. Included in this packet, you will see the recommended design that's on page 4. Page 5 starts the actual mock-ups, which is really exciting to see. We have chosen Playcore as the potential vendor to move forward with. And excuse me, the recommended design is modeled on 7 principles of inclusive playground design that PlayCorps has created as part of these Me Too and To Play Together programs. Those 7 principles are to be fair, to be included, smart, independent, safe, active, and be comfortable. And you'll see in the Me Too and To Play Together kind of document that it lists more information on, you know, what those design elements really mean in terms of kind of that hands-on aspect. The specific elements that are included in this particular design that has essentially been drawn up for us at this point include 3 ramped access points, handhold barriers, sensory panels, an inclusive swing set, inclusive teeter-totter, inclusive merry-go-round, inclusive rocker, a hand pedaler, slide transfer, accessible driving panels, and an inclusive pinnacle climber. So additionally, the playground has 8 attached climbing structures, including a 2-story helix tower and rock climbing wall, 4 slides, and a hang glider. Playground caters to early education through young adults. This is, we're on a timer here. Okay. We'll be moving right along. So essentially what we are requesting is $200,000 in CDBG grant funding, which would go to the total $780,000 redesign. Playgrounds are expensive, you know, about $234,000 of that overall budget would go towards the resurfacing of the playground structure itself, which would allow for, you know, wheelchair access to all aspects of the playground. That also includes shade structures, about $60,000 in shade structures, which has been identified as part of the Parks Recreation Master Plan as a heavily needed considerations in our community. So, yeah.
All right, good job, Bree. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, I am going to close the public hearing at 6:32 p.m. And we'll move on to our next public hearing, which is a public hearing for the, oh, and just so you know, like I mentioned, I believe there's another public hearing we'll have if we receive the grant funding that we've applied for. Is that correct, Richard? And that'll be, we'll know in March or April. And so we'll have to do another public hearing at that time. So this is not the last you've heard about this project. All right, next, I have another public hearing for the resolution 03-2024, a resolution amending the fiscal year budget 23-24. I'm going to open this public hearing at 6:33 p.m. And David is going to just describe to you what those amendments are.
Evening, Council. This is David Everett, Chief Operating Officer. Let me get my slideshow up here. All right, there we go. So those of you who maybe have not experienced a mid-year budget amendment process yet in your lives, this one is not that exciting. So just a couple of comments really quickly on the process. It's something that cities do typically, although not always. It's not a requirement. It's simply a tool in the toolbox for doing sort of tasks that would help you set you up well for the upcoming budget process for the next fiscal year, as well as do some corrections or reflect decisions that have been made already by the council but need to be essentially formalized in the budget process. So what we try to do in the budget amendment process is really avoid major decisions with policy implications, because the whole point of budgeting is to make decisions in context. And so the annual budget process is really where all that should happen. So, and we also don't need to correct things that are like $5,000 items or $2,000 items. The goal is to really just deal with larger ticket items that may have been missed or unforeseen issues that have come up. So that's why we're here. Just really quickly, the revenue picture as it sits today, or at the end of December at least, was showing that sales and use taxes and all these associated taxes have been coming in at about as expected. And so total tax revenue, which as you know is the bulk of your budgeted revenue for the city, is sitting at about 60% of what we've budgeted for that half of the year. Typically more money does come in the first half of the year just because of the lag and how taxes are remitted. Upshot for this is I wouldn't touch it, don't need to mess with it in terms of projections at this point. So I feel pretty good about where we sit. Highlights for this budget amendment really quickly, a couple of new revenue additions. The interest income on the city's bank accounts was never really accounted for. So we're throwing in a little bit there because interest rates are high relatively. So that has generated some income for the city. Police grants have come in thanks to some excellent work by staff in the police department. We do have some new expenses, and it is important to recognize these, both the revenue and the expenses, as whether they're ongoing revenue and expenses or one time. Generally, the better policy is to, if you have one-time revenues coming in, you're budgeting for one-time expenses with those, just like you would in your own personal budget. So new expenses that coming in that are in this include some subscription obligations that were initially omitted in the budget for FY24. A pretty sizable chunk of money to hopefully abate the property on Mountain View that has been sitting for a while and is a real eyesore in the neighborhood. A broom vehicle, one-time expense, probably the top priority vehicle within the public services, public utilities world. And then just a number of housekeeping items that are just opportunities to really clean things up. Like I said, set things up for next year and also to properly account for things like the Cane Creek Boulevard reconstruction project, the dispersed parking project, and then just to move funds around to make things work a little bit better in terms of the budget. A big one was police vehicles had been budgeted for in the capital fund, but my view is that because they're not assets that the city gets to keep and depreciate, we're going to move them back into the operating fund and make a line item there that really spells out what those expenses are, just to make it clear. In the housing fund, we had to do a little reconciliation there. And then enterprise funds, that's just making sure that what we're showing in the budget reflects what we really think we're going to be spending. And let's see. So yeah, just kind of I'd say the headlines, to the degree these deserve any, would be that we're pulling a little bit more out of the general fund to balance the budget, even with the additional revenue. The bulk of that is for capital project expenditures, including the broom vehicle and the and dispersed parking. And we're budgeting only for half of the Cane Creek Boulevard project and the downtown dispersed parking project in 2024, and the rest will come in the next budget year. And yeah, that's it. I think it's important to note, though, that out of all of the increase in spending that you're looking at here, 85% of that is indeed one-time expenditures. So this is generally a good approach to take. And that's about it. Any questions for Mayor? Sorry.
That's okay. Questions for David before I close the public hearing or open the public hearing for comment from anybody? I already opened it, but I haven't had anybody come up yet. We thought it'd be good for David to present first. But you guys are welcome to ask questions now. Okay, anybody from the public that would like to speak on the amended budget?
What about the?
Ma'am, would you mind coming up to
Sorry,
state your name again?
Olivia Bone.
Okay.
I'm wondering about the Cane Creek. I didn't hear what he said about the Cane Creek Boulevard. Are they gonna widen it or what is it?
It's a reconstruction project. So we're going to resurface it. We're going to replace all the water and sewer lines. We're going to make it a complete street, include bike lanes and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Are they gonna widen it?
No,
Not really sure.
no. They're going to be they're going to be sidewalks and bike lanes.
Okay,
It's going to be
That's good.
a very nice improved
Be nice.
project. Yep.
good.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Yes.
So, my name's Bill Agee, and I was reading in the newspaper about these two particular capital projects. And so I always ask myself, what's the value? What's the value add? You know, because they are expensive capital projects. I think there's some misunderstanding as to what they really are going to provide. And so I've always felt like if I want to persuade somebody to kind of get on board, the most important thing you can do is inform them. And I feel like I've been, around here for over 10 years, and I don't know anything really about these projects. And my brother, who's been here much longer than me, he's of the opinion that the dispersed parking is nothing but a restriping project. So which if that's the case, then $6.7 million is absurd. So I guess my question is, what is the project? What is the?
There's going to be a public engagement this Thursday at the Grand Center at 5:30. And so you can learn everything and have all those questions answered at that time.
So has the money been appropriated? Has it already been
Yes,
determined?
yes.
So why would you have an information process after the fact?
This project was, and generally I don't like to answer questions at
Okay,
this time.
well, I
but
can
for
let
your-
this go then. That's fine.
Well, this project was approved years ago before this body.
This
and-
was hotspot funding.
This is-
Yes,
we
and so there
received-
was a lot of public engagement at that time. It's just taken us a while to get here.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. I just always ask, what's the value?
Yeah, sure. Great
Yeah.
questions. And please go to the
Yeah.
public engagement.
Okay,
on
thank you very
Thursday.
much.
Yep, you bet. Anybody else that would like to comment on the amended budget? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:41 PM and ask for consideration of adoption of resolution 03-2024, a resolution amending the fiscal year 23-24 budget. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the resolution 03-2024, amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
Motion by Colin. Any second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Tawny. Discussion, Colin?
None.
Tawny?
No.
Anybody else? Luke?
Yeah, I was looking at some of the costs in the amendment and I noticed that recruiting is shockingly expensive. I get it. I did some research online and it actually looks like it's kind of industry standard costs for this, but seeing that we basically have like $60,000 allocated for recruiting kind of made me think of what we have in terms of like retention retention incentives and everything. I know we've purchased the house to try to make finding housing like a little bit easier for new employees and everything. I'm really excited at the candidates that we were able to obtain like through this consulting company that's been doing a fantastic job so far. But it's also kind of puts into question that like some people in town don't make this much money in a year and we spend it to like bring people in. And so when we spend that much money to bring people in, like what types of things do we have in place to like keep them here as long as possible so that we kind of maximize the value out of that large expense? I know that, or I think we had brought up like longevity bonuses last year, but I don't know that we ever got back to that conversation. But I know that's like an issue that businesses across the community deal with in terms of like employee retention. But it kind of made me think of like when we lost our planning director, how a lot of projects kind of weren't moving at the same pace as we have. And so there's kind of cost loss due to not having those positions filled. And then whenever we do bring on a new hire, like there's the training associated with that. So yeah, I'm totally fine paying for like really high quality people I think our community deserves. The people that I believe we've gotten. So I'm really thankful for that, but I also want to do what we can to like keep you guys as long as we can. But so those are just like some questions that I had and potentially like would like a future discussion about.
We can have a future discussion about retention for sure. And I hope, I don't know if you saw this, but one thing about the headhunter that we have is that they will go out again for free if an employee leaves within 12 months that they've
Good,
also
appreciate
select.
that,
So
yeah.
we do have some guarantee, not a guarantee necessarily of employment, but at least we're not spending anything
Yeah.
twice in a short period. I like the point that you brought up too about cost loss, which is it's a lot of money to put up front to find recruitment and to get someone in the positions. We also lose money having those positions open. For example, the city engineer being absent means that we have to bring civil science on to provide engineering services for us. And it's probably a little more expensive than what we would pay if we had someone in-house. And there are just other lost opportunities and we're kind of filling in and not just that, but loss of efficiency as well. So you're not getting the most out of the rest of the employees because we're filling in or we're, conducting interviews. And there's also a cost savings in some way when it comes to using a headhunter, because I'm not interviewing 50 people, I'm interviewing 10 or 15 or, 4 or whatever it is. And I will say too, that we're getting just like applicants of a different kind of caliber, kind of from all over that are really more impressive than I've seen without something like the headhunter. And we do it for specific positions. It's not every position, certainly. It's ones that we know we're going to be very selective about. And we're looking for a real specific subject matter expertise. So there's cost savings associated with that too. But there is like a sticker shock number, and a lot of it is to that, we send out mailers and these physical costs of reaching a number of people that are tricky. But that wasn't really your question about longevity and retention. We have like some retention policies for different departments that we can talk about for sure.
Yeah, no, I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And thank you for that perspective. There's some things that I hadn't considered. And I did appreciate seeing that they do kind of have that 12-month
Yeah.
guarantee. But I've also heard and personally experienced it generally takes about a year to get trained up for the position. So like if there are things that we can do to keep them once they're like fully up to speed,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's only for the betterment of our community.
I feel the same way. Yeah.
Thanks, Luke. Anybody else?
I just like to echo kind of what Luke said. I feel pretty strongly about that. When we talked about like the longevity, I looked in it's in the manual. People have been, people read the manual. The people are employees that have been here for a long time, kind of look to these goals, when you're in a company, or when you're working for the city and stuff. And so I know whether it was May or June, we talked that we would revisit it back in November or when we'd revisit it. And I think that as we've opened up the budget, we've seen these things and we've kind of seen kind of the money and the finances kind of settle on some of this stuff that, we kind of made a commitment that we'd look at it. And I would like to, do that.
Yeah,
So,
I'll say that we did look at it for this budget amendment. This would be a time, I think we talked about looking at it mid-year. And to address that question, I kind of need to go back. So it's sort of a long answer, my thinking and my reasoning, because I didn't include longevity, and merit was more the one that we were definitely wanting to look at. Longevity is a little more discretionary. We don't typically do it every year. We typically try to do merit every year. If we can afford it, we always try to commit to COLA. That's really the biggest priority. So if you recall last year, we had an exceptionally difficult time balancing the budget.
Mhm.
Like we kind of up for days trying, like making little cuts to like equipment, to uniforms, to those little things, just like all of these little places where we could try to spend money. And the big thing that we were trying to pay for was the COLA increase at a minimum. And I think we had proposed, 3 or 4% COLA, and we were trying to find it. And it got actually a little kind of ridiculous in the things that we were cutting, because it was like, we're going to have a fully staffed department, but we're not going to have like slurry for the streets department to do any projects. So why are we employing them if they can't do projects, or a communications director without engagement software? Like what are we doing here? So we did something, Ben and I did something that is kind of counter to our best judgment and my level of tolerance for risk, which is we assumed that we would have a 3% increase in sales tax revenue this fiscal year. We didn't really have any reason to believe that would be the case. We actually had reasons to believe it would not, because the economy was kind of looking a little shady at the time. But we assumed that to kind of beef up the revenue. And then we added another percent to reach the 5% COLA. And we actually pulled that from fund balance, from the savings accounts, which isn't really designed to be ongoing. That should be a one-time spend, but we're really, this is a simplistic way to think of it, but if we don't meet those revenue caps, we're going to be pulling from fund balance or making cuts elsewhere in the city on projects or people or whatever. We've got to find the money somewhere. So we made a commitment to council that if we were truly meeting those revenue projections, the 3%, and even exceeding them, we would relook at merit, and any excess that we had, we would try to distribute into a merit. We've also had some other good news. I'm sure you caught this on the slide, where we had like some interest revenue that's still kind of one time too. So good news on some revenue fronts, but they're not like the sales tax They're not kind of ongoing like a merit would be. A merit is something we buy forever. It doesn't change year to year, something we're committing to forever. We haven't met that 3% number. We're above last year. We're at 1.7%, which is great, but we're probably going to have to pull from that interest payment or some other source to pay for the commitments we've already made for the COLA. That's a very simple way of putting it. We have a healthy fund balance. I don't want to, indicate that we're in any kind of trouble. But we probably want to look a little harder for the next budget to see where the priorities are for any kind of cushion we have in fund balance. Do we want to invest that in new employees ongoing? Do we want to invest that in equipment? Do you want to invest it on a merit? Is it some combination of the three or something else that I'm not thinking of? But at this time, I didn't recommend it simply because the threshold hadn't been met. We're looking at a merit. I don't know what a merit would cost. It's expensive if we were to fully fund it. And we're looking at another COLA coming up. We're looking at something like $600,000, even going into the next fiscal year that we are spending forever. So that was my
I understand that.
perspective.
Yeah,
but
and I get that, yeah. And I think it just needs to be looked at, because I think we have this thing that we put it in the employee manual, like, hey, you come stay here for as long as you can. We're gonna do this here. And it's happened every year since it was implemented.
No, it's not the case.
No,
Mm-mm.
is there years that it hasn't
We
happened?
didn't do it over for COVID, and
Well,
we
COVID.
cut it right before COVID too. So my first budget year, we had to cut merit and longevity and COLA, I think. So that was 2019, 2020, and then we had to do it for COVID again. And longevity is one that it's in the manual. It's clear that it is available if funded. So it's discretionary year to year. There's no
Right.
Promise to do it.
There's the expectation because it's happened so frequently, that it's hard to get over that. So I just like to, but I think, I don't know
Yeah,
how anybody else feels. Let's put it somewhere and talk about it before.
we're going to talk about it next month.
Yeah, for the upcoming budget.
Yeah, and then during the budget process.
Okay.
So, yeah, I appreciate you guys bringing that up. And we'll definitely visit that so you can talk to staff about it more directly. Okay? Anybody else? Caitlin, any comments?
Just on that, I mean, I totally agree. And I think the last time the city cut the merit increases, they offered other benefits, like we got the week off between Christmas and New Year's. I think if the city is considering more frequently cutting the merit increases, that we start looking at other ways to provide benefits to our employees. It is really disheartening to not get a merit increase, even, it's not promised, but it's also kind of expected for our staff. So I would love to look at that. And I appreciate Bill's comment. I think that's been a huge thing for me, making sure that the city is, as we're moving forward with some of these really big, really impactful and very expensive projects, that we are doing a really good job of communicating that to the public. I think that that's going to ring true as we start this next budget process. Particularly there are a lot of requests for kind of better analysis of the way that the city is spending our funding, spending our budget. And so I want to make sure that as we are starting that budget process moving forward, that we are doing that in a way that's transparent and brings residents in on some of the big reasons why our budget is so big in certain areas.
Good.
Can I just add on to that?
Sure.
Yeah, just to add on to that, and to highlight Lisa's really fantastic work on the website. We did just get kind of a new back end for the website, and I think we're hoping to create a much easier and much more accessible space for people to be able to follow these big developing projects and engage with them. So yeah, hopefully that bears fruition. And if not, we'd love the feedback that this isn't something that's working for the community, but because we want to.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Connie, do you have any comment?
No.
Okay. I have a motion on the table to approve the adoption of resolution 03-2024, amending the fiscal year budget for 23-24. Motion made by Colin, seconded by Tawny.
No,
All-
yeah, sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, David. All right, next up we have Corey. And this is the consideration of the adoption of resolution 2024, a resolution approving the South Place minor subdivision of property located at 943 South Main Street, Moab, Utah 84532. Just for clarification, so you guys all know, this is an administrative decision that the state legislature last year changed. And so this, you will not be seeing these type of requests in the probably, I guess the state law goes into effect at the end of this year. So we're kind of phasing that out. And so just be aware of that. So this is a minor subdivision, and Corey, take it away.
Thank you. As it is just this administrative, but I'm having a summer let me in right now. Action. It's really a division that's meeting the minimum lot standards for conforming lots. So I'll, rather than have a presentation, open it to if there are any questions on the proposed subdivision.
Questions for Corey? Motion.
I motion that the Moab City Council approve resolution 02-2024, a resolution approving the South Place minor subdivision of property located at 943 South Main Street in Moab, Utah 84532.
Motion by Caitlin, second by Luke. Any discussion, Caitlin?
Nope.
Luke?
Nope.
Anybody else? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Without a whiteboard, Corey.
That's the,
I know.
thank you,
Good
Jen.
job, Corey.
We wrestled it away from him.
I'm disappointed.
All right, next up, we have Michael to talk about the approval of a task order for City of Moab on-call engineering services. And this is a contract with Civil Science to provide engineering services in the amount of $132,300 to serve as our engineer on call for the City of Moab.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council and Mayor and City Manager. I've got a few presentations for you tonight, so I'll just go through and we'll start with the city engineer contract. So as you may be aware, the city engineer position is vacant at this time. It is a crucial position to the City of Moab. The position is generally filled by a professional engineer, which is a licensed position in the state of Utah, and carries with it a lot of weight and some legal requirements as well. And there are several portions of our code that require the city engineer to make certain decisions based on certain standards that are established. One of those we could talk about is crosswalks, ensuring that crosswalks are spaced adequately and that we put in crosswalks in places where they're going to be the most safe, where you have sight distance, things like that. And whenever an engineer does something like that, they are using their stamp or their professional license as credibility to say that I'm basing this based on my licensure. I'm saying that this is safe, and we rely on that a lot. So we need an engineering firm to help us out while we have this vacancy, and we have opted to go with Civil Science or make the recommendation that the City Council approve this. Civil Science is a group that we've worked with for years. They offer diverse engineering services. We have received a task order from them for the total of $132,000. Now that's a 12-month period. It's a rolling period, and it's an estimate for what we think that we would use. We've gone through and we've looked at the amount of time that would afford us for a professional engineer versus other levels of engineers, and we think that we can work within that amount for the next 12 months. The service levels, going with an engineering firm, one of the great things about it is we have access to multiple levels of engineers. So we're not asking a professional engineer who we're paying the top rate to do something that an engineer in training could potentially do, which has a totally different rate. So we're able to use that and get the right technical expertise, but also control costs in the same way. And the budget impact would be coming from the savings in the operations budget that are created by having the city engineer position vacant. So we recommend approval of the task order for Civil Science for engineering services.
And we fully intend to have the position filled within 12 months, just so you know. I hope to very much. But this is a just in case we need the service.
Questions for Michael? Motion.
I move to approve the task order for the downtown dispersed parking construction phase engineering and inspection services. In the, sorry. I wanted to-
That's next.
Unless I
No.
got the wrong motion and then, which could probably did happen.
You had a few things on the agenda.
Oh, no, it's right on there. It's move to approve the task order with Civil Science Inc. for the on-call engineering services in the amount of 132. I'm not making that motion, but
Sounds like you are.
I have my stuff out of order. I move to approve the task order with Civil Science Inc. for the on-call engineering services in the amount of $132,300 and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Motion by Luke. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jason. Discussion, Luke?
Nope.
Jason?
No.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next up, we have consideration of approval of a task force for the Moab Downtown Dispersed Parking Construction Phase Engineering and Inspection Services. And Michael is going to give us some good news about this particular task order.
so I'm going to talk about two recent task orders that have been approved, or contracts that or agreements that have been approved for construction by the city council. And we've had an opportunity to go back and look at those and to look at how we're organizing our inspection services and construction administration services. So I'm going to talk about downtown dispersed parking really quick and show you how it was approved and what we were able to do, and then talk about the Complete Streets project on Cane Creek Boulevard and show you what we were able to do on that as well and explain how we were able to do it. So first of all, downtown dispersed parking is 11 blocks of a project that would create about 193 new parking spaces in the downtown that would provide new pedestrian opportunities as well. Parking is not the only thing that it will be doing. It will be improving intersections and crossing for pedestrians, as well as some aesthetic benefits. And it'll also be putting in infrastructure for EV chargers as well. So there's a number of different things that it is doing, but this one is just about the engineering services actually, or the construction services. So we're going to be beginning with the kickoff this January 25th, and that is at the Grand Center. And this kickoff is really about meeting the contractor. The contractor has been selected. It's LeGrand Johnson. They will be the ones doing the work, and we're going to have them at the Grand Center so people can come down and get introduced to the contractor and learn about the project. We've also been going door to door with our public information people and public engagement people, and they've been talking to everybody who's affected in this area one-on-one and been connecting with them and talking to them about the schedule and the impacts that we can expect and the benefit that'll come from the end of the project. We're planning on mobilization beginning February 5th, with construction most likely starting right after that on February 12th. And then the duration of the project, which is one of the biggest wins that we're going to talk about tonight. We went from a 16-month project to probably 6 months of construction. And then we will have a little bit of a break, and then landscaping will be taking place a little bit later. So another month or so of landscaping, but won't be closing down streets or anything like that. And most of the work will be taking place within the shoulders, and traffic patterns will remain the same as far as keeping lanes open, things like that throughout the duration of the project. So to look at this, I've got a couple of columns here. And the first one is October, when the project was approved, and the construction project was $5,510,000. It was approved with the assumption that construction admin would be around $472,000 and public engagement would be around $165,000. We've been able to reduce construction administration mainly by reducing the length of the project, and then also by taking the advice and looking for different alternatives as far as housing goes, and encouraging our consultants to look, since they're going to be here for a while, look for an apartment as opposed to paying $250 a night for a hotel room. They were amenable to that. Those costs get passed on right to us anyways, but they were amenable, and I think we've been able to resolve that situation, and we've been able to reduce that quite a bit. In fact, we reduce the project on this one $199,000 just from rearranging that. One of the other things I should point out, and it'll be more clear in the next one when we look at Cane Creek, but we had originally anticipated one of our in-house inspectors, our only in-house inspector for infrastructure, to be on this project the whole time. And we decided to change that up a little bit, and we moved that person to Cane Creek, which is the next one we're going to look at. And with Cane Creek, the project amount, I'll just start with the project amount, was approved at $10,500,000. We told you when we asked you to approve it, that we did expect about a $300,000 reduction right off the top, and that did happen. We do have the change order for that, and it is being processed as we speak. Additionally, by moving Beecham Bosch, who's our inspector, over to the Cane Creek project, we were able to reduce the construction admin from $519,000 down to $66,000. Now, this construction admin is more than inspections, obviously. Beecham will do the inspections, but construction admin will be keeping track of all the work that's happening, bills that are coming in, ensuring that the work is happening in accordance with the approved plans and things like that. So altogether, on this one, we were able to save around $750,000. Now, in addition, I wanted to also point out that since we met last, we were also informed that we were awarded the $600,000 grant from the Rural County Communities Opportunity Grant. And so that goes into this as well. I'm not counting it as a savings, but it does offset some of the requirements for resources out of the general fund. So altogether, between these two projects, we're able, by moving things around and looking at things a little as creatively as we can, and also by working with the contractor for dispersed parking and shortening the project immensely, we were able to save about $950,000 between these two projects. So today, I'm actually, even though we're talking about Cane Creek right now, I'm actually asking for approval for the construction services contract or engineering services contract for the downtown dispersed parking, which, as I stated previously, would start February the 5th.
Questions for Michael?
No.
Motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the task order for the downtown dispersed parking construction phase, engineering and inspection services in the amount of $329,000 and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second. All right, motion by Jason, seconded by Caitlin. Any further discussion, Jason?
No, just thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you, for working your magic, and for Michael for making these productions are huge. That's awesome. I appreciate it.
Caitlin?
Same. Congratulations on the ARCOG grant. It's great to see how much you guys are working on adjusting the budget, finding solutions for construction administration. I also have seen stuff about the open house on Thursday all over the place in my inbox, on my social media, and my email. So thank you to you and Lisa for really emphasizing that.
Sure.
Great. Anybody else?
I just have a quick question.
Sure, Tony.
On the agenda summary, it notes the decrease in the timeline. On the actual task order, it doesn't. Is that gonna be amended?
I was just going to bring that up. And once I heard the motion, I realized that since the time that I put out the staff report and now we've actually been able to work with our consultants to reduce the time frame. So the actual amount is $240,000, not $329,000. And I meant to say that to begin with, but as I show up here, the amount is actually $240,000. So the task order that we'll ask the mayor to sign is $240,000, and that's reflective of the time frame.
Okay, so it sounds like I need an amended motion. So could
Can
I?
we just say up to?
Yeah. I mean, or whatever,
What do you want?
What is the new amount?
$240,000.
Okay. I move to approve the task order for the downtown dispersed parking construction phase engineering and inspection services in the amount of $240,000 and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. All right.
Okay, that's an amended motion. Second?
Second.
Okay, great. All right, we have an amended motion made by Jason, seconded by Caitlin. Any further discussion from anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, that's great news. Good job, Michael. Really,
It is a whole team effort, so we're all working very hard to get these projects going and make them feasible.
great. All right, our last item of business tonight is consideration of a contract award to Kendig Keist Collaborative for consulting service for the zoning title update. We used to call it the municipal code rewrite. This is the more technical term, but this is what this is about. We've been talking about this for a while, but this is awarding the contract to begin that process. And Michael, do you have anything? Yes, you do.
Yeah, and yeah, I think anyways, I'll leave that. So this contract, you may be aware there's an RFP is one of the things that the mayor had asked me about soon after I started and was a priority was getting this RFP out for the zoning title update. And it's not a rewrite because we're mainly updating. There will be sections that are rewritten, but basically we're modernizing, organizing zoning regulations and consistency and the community involvement and online accessibility. So those are the goals. That's what we're trying to do. The goal is to update the zoning title. There are a lot of portions of the zoning title that are out of date that are not consistent with state code. One of the areas that we talked about today that we will be talking about with the zoning title update is the subdivision ordinance. I won't go into detail, but there have been changes at the state level that where the statute has changed and subdivision, we need to update our subdivision ordinance. There's several things like that within the zoning title as well. We're planning to kick off this project soon. The time frame will be all of the calendar year 2024. And the budget impact is about 109,000, all of which has been budgeted for within the planning budget.
Questions for Michael? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the professional services agreement with Kendig Keist Collaborative for the zoning title update for a total of $109,859 and grant authorization to the mayor to sign the contract.
Motion by Tawny, second.
Second.
Second by Colin. Any discussion, Tawny? Colin?
None.
Anybody else?
I do have a question.
Sure, Caitlin.
So I saw in there that there's this contract amount is not including the additional scope. I was wondering if you could explain that because it seems like they both include online platform, but there's like a premium version.
So they would like to sell us a new online platform. We already have an online platform. We did update the scope of work a little bit to be able to fit it into our budget. The items that they have put in here for options, we could accomplish the goal that we have without those options. They do want to present to us their form of online publication. We'll listen to them, look at it and see if there's a benefit to bring it to the council for discussion or if there's even resources for that. But yeah, so, and then let me see if I can find the rest of it. Was it mainly about the online publication? Or here it is, I just.
Yeah, it seemed like there was some features about like, you could have a GIS map and look up your parcel and.
Oh, yes. So it's true. There are a lot of things that we could do in order to make this project really flashy and be able to be as customer service oriented as possible. But the goal that we have is to update the zoning title. So if we get to the point where we do think that we could add those things and more like bells and whistles, or we discover that we want to do those and maybe we can do those in-house, we'll talk to the council about, the potential for that in the future. I don't expect that we will be coming back with any change orders asking to add those things on. They just wanted to let us know that they do offer those services.
Anybody else? All right, I have a motion by Tawny, seconded by Colin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Michael. Yes.
Can I just make one correction? I attributed the $600,000 grant from RCOG to the Cane Creek project. It actually is to the Downtown Dispersed project. Doesn't change anything as far as the amount of savings or anything like that goes. But overall, but just to be correct, it actually is attributed to the Downtown Dispersed parking, not the Cane Creek project.
Thanks for that correction. All right. All righty. Moving on to city manager updates.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I have a couple of events that I want to make you aware of. They have been mentioned in the meeting, but just to reiterate some of them. This Thursday, January 25th, we will have a Meet the Contractor open house at the Grand Center from 5 to 7 p.m. for the dispersed parking construction project. And we give you dates about mobilization for that. Sort of imminent February is mobilization and then groundbreaking maybe a week later. On February 8th, there will be a Meet the Contractor open house at the Grand Center, another one from 5 to 7 again for the Cane Creek project. The Cane Creek project will begin to mobilize and stage around mid-February and then should break ground around a week later. So both of these projects are kind of getting underway at the same time. It will be interesting to see what kind of impact the construction has on the community. We will be monitoring it very carefully because these are all heavily used roads. And there might be some adjustments that we make when it comes to staging or phasing and all of those kinds of things, just because we're not totally sure how they're going to interact with each other. The Tusher Sewer Project is ongoing. It's currently focused on the corner of 200 South and Tusher. That should be completed mid-April. Their timeline got pushed back a little bit because the Birch project took a little longer than we anticipated. So we're a couple months out, but they're still kind of clicking along efficiently. It's just because of Birch mostly. You probably saw in the budget amendment, we are also doing work to the water lines on 200 South. So when we dug up the road, we realized the water and sewer lines were too close to each other. And so we have a change order for moving them and replacing them basically. So was unanticipated cost, but probably a necessary cost. Just OB explained to me that you don't want both being hit accidentally by a contractor because you'll have cross-contamination issues, and that's why they need to be more interspersed. But we did find some cost savings when it came to paving the road after. It looks like we're going to get more of a paved job than just a patched job. So the end product should look good. We're replacing some really important infrastructure, and we've eliminated a risk that we didn't even know about. So we're going to be really conscientious as we identify additional projects for the CIP, and especially this year and coming years, to kind of assume that we might have those water and sewer issues maybe all over town, and just assume we're going to have to, or probably should, move water or sewer depending on what the project is, because we're already down there. And I really appreciate the residents' patience, especially on 200 South and Tusher, because the construction impact has not been minimal. This is true for Birch too. They have had to close down the road. But hopefully we just get them much better and more resilient infrastructure. I think it's worth the investment, but we really appreciate their patience and cooperation. The legislature started last week. It's our favorite time of year. At this moment, I don't know of any issues that are specific to Moab, but there are big issues that are targeting municipalities generally. It's the same kind of conflict we have year to year. Some really big bills coming down when it comes to our land use policy and our land use authority. And we're going to be setting up an LPC in the coming weeks, just as the legislature sort of ramps up, to make sure we can talk to our lobbyist and we can have him here in a few weeks just to provide an update. Again, it's not really city specific, so it'll be kind of intense or not as intense as years past, hopefully, but we're closely monitoring if there is a change in that condition. I think we have an LPC group, and I want to make sure whoever's on that committee has access to the Utah League of Cities and Towns LPC each Monday at noon. They have an update meeting where all the cities get together and we kind of talk about issues. So
did you go this Monday? I wasn't able to attend.
I didn't. I also saw on well, I'm unclear if it's me or if it's Jason, because I think Jason's on the LPC.
we can have two of you.
Okay, great. I didn't attend on Monday, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
can do
will.
that. I'll make sure that the league has your contact info and it'll just send you the updates. Jason, are you on there?
I don't think I'm on there.
Let me, okay,
No.
I can follow up on that. You are right, Mayor.
Yes.
Okay. Terrific. The mayor wanted me to give you just sort of an update on timeline when it comes to your favorite topic, the property tax, which we discussed at length during strategic planning. And we also discussed this an engagement plan to make sure that we're getting a lot of community feedback and providing information to the community. We're going to start developing that plan now and probably like launch by around April when the budget is due. And we'll of course be doing 2-on-2s with you as we start to develop the budget, maybe not the admin budget, but certainly as we present the tentative budget. We'll be sure to kind of have really intensive sessions so your particular detailed questions and feedback can be considered. So just update on that, and that's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Carly. All right, moving on to mayor and council reports. I'm going to start with you, Jason.
All right, well, it's been a while since I gave a report since December. Few things that I attended in the last month. I attended the city council retreat, which was beginning of January, which was really good. You guys were all at that, and thought it was a really good experience, and I learned a lot, from everybody within the city, and I appreciate them taking the time to come and discuss kind of what their needs were and how things are going. So want to make a shout out to all the employees of the city that it's amazing the job they're doing and what they're doing with what they have and stuff, which is great. I attended an airport board meeting. Just heads up, our regular air service, which was United and Delta, will be done, which is through SkyWest, will be done at the end of the month. And Contour Airlines will be taking over February 1st. There is an open house on February 1st at the airport with Contour. I think it's at noon. And so if you can make it, it'd be great for that. Also, Redtail Aviation, which is a local company here in town, is offering 2 flights a week to Salt Lake City. I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays for those flights. And then they're doing some improvements at the airport. They just finished up a fence around the whole airport to keep wild animals out and stuff from impacting the runways. And attended an EMS board meeting, which was very informative and always good. EMS had a 6% decrease in calls this year from last year. So things were down with EMS, but what is interesting is that there some months were pretty far down, and then there were some months that were 10% plus higher. So it's like from a staffing point of view, I think it has to be about the most frustrating thing in the world. You have people twiddling their thumbs, or you don't have enough staff.
Right.
So they're doing the best they can and working really hard to serve the community, and they're running into some struggles of just they're starting to get longer calls, to Green River does not have a very doesn't have their EMS services are on and off depending on who's in town. And so they make a lot of trips. I think they're saying like 3 to 4 trips a week to Green River sometimes to pick up patients and shuttle them places. So that's a big issue because it takes them out of service for our area. So they said they actually had to decline a call last week because they had 2 ambulances on call here. Green River called and they said, we can't go, so it's kind of an important thing. I attended the Building a Better Tomorrow scenarios, and which the county is working on, and I attended quite a few roundtables last week. Building a Better Tomorrow committee is doing a great job of literally trying to talk to everybody that will talk to them. So from community people to restaurants to transportation to they're trying to cover the whole gamut. I was just trying to figure out where everybody stands with our economy with tourism, you know, things like that, and what is important to people and what we can do better in the future and where we're going and how to build that, how to build tomorrow that works for everybody. And let's see, I think that's it. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Caitlin.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I hit the ground running. On January 4th, I attended the Moab Area Housing Task Force meeting. Of note, the county is moving forward with the affordable housing plan, which you guys adopted in December. That was written by the Housing Task Force. They actually brought it to Planning Commission last night. So that's moving forward. Their updates might inform a potential update for this body later, depending on what they decide to do with the action plan. And otherwise, the Housing Task Force talked about goals and priorities for the next year. They're going to be creating a housing dashboard with live updated housing and community data for the public. And we'll be working on educational and kind of, you know, legislative housing work throughout the year. Also on the 4th, I had a check-in with my first check-in with the mayor and with Tani. That was informative. Then I did on the 8th attend an LPC meeting, my first, just kind of getting clued in on the legislative session. And then the next day, did more of a webinar hosted by the league, focused on just kind of legislative session. They walked through how a bill becomes a law and how to navigate the legislative website. So it was really informative, and it's been really useful for me as I'm starting to track bills and everything that's going on. On the 10th, I attended a MAPS 2.0 meeting, just kind of getting up to speed on that, but seems like we are going to be doing a master planning process. The master plan was approved probably about 20 years ago. And so as some needs in the community have changed, we're talking about doing a design charrette to figure out how to bring all of the players together and build senior housing and associated services that meet existing community needs. With strategic planning the next 2 days, and then the day after that, Tani and I had a visit with President Ronald Mustier, who is, yeah, pardon my French, I don't speak French. Doing my best here, but he was brought down by the state, kind of a Utah tour focused on building partnerships with the southern region of France. They are a very similar region to the state of Utah, lots of state and national parks. It was really fun. I feel like we're just really interesting to learn some of the data analysis and gathering techniques that they're using. And you know, they're hosting the end of the Tour de France this year. Maybe we could take a city trip. Sister city.
They invited us.
Yes. And then on the 17th, partially wearing other hats, but you know, I guess always wearing a city hat. I did go to one of the community forums for the Trail to Tomorrow, kind of giving feedback. It was really interesting. I think that the consultants they've hired are going to do a really amazing job. So that's all for me.
That's a lot for your
It was a lot.
your first 2 weeks, 3 weeks. All right, Luke.
Yeah, so I think mine goes back to strategic planning, which was a really fun experience and really nice to hear like feedback from the staff and then kind of get to know the new counselors in a more professional capacity. And really excited about getting to work with them in the upcoming future. I attended our local homeless council meeting. So like some quick 2024 data is at least that they've been able to count. We have 27 people that are literally homeless in our community, 8 of which are chronically homeless. And then we have 32 individuals who are situationally homeless. So ideally a temporary situation. And the most common reason for homelessness in our community is still domestic violence. It generally kind of waffles between domestic violence, mental health concerns, or substance use. On a positive note, the Housing Authority is at an all-time high in terms of the vouchers that it's giving out, and it still has more. So if you are potentially interested in housing vouchers, please reach out to the Housing Authority to see if you are eligible for them. And then most of the meeting was kind of spent our own strategic plan for this upcoming year. And I think we're carrying things forward from last year, aside from there's been a request by several of the members for the community to implement the equivalent of a Code Blue like they have up north, so that there can be some sort of warming center available to unhoused individuals when temperatures drop to dangerous levels. We were talking about potentially having the need to do something equivalent during the summer, so maybe like a Code Red. And so we discussed that a little bit at strategic planning. I know there's some interest with some community partners for potentially hosting that facility. I then attended the Moab Area Watershed Partnership, where we approved a letter of support for a grant that would add more monitoring wells near the GWISA office. So there's a lot of organizations and entities that are looking at really expanding our capacity to monitor water across the valley, just to give us as detailed of insight as possible as to our water situation. We did another letter of support for GWISA to apply for isolation valves for upstream of Pat Creek. This would allow them to basically shut off water below the pipeline. And so if they need to do any work on it, it doesn't cut off like access to everybody. And it also ends up being a water conserving tool as well. And then GWISA is looking at a grant to help begin the development of a secondary pipe water system for, this would be for new builds. It'd be really hard to kind of connect older builds to that. But I guess this kind of ties into, I was also attending my first GWISA board meeting where we voted on a new tiered like pay structure that has some elevated rates. There's 3 options available. One of them was to do nothing. One of them was to do this tiered structure. And another one was to do just like an overall increase of the base rates. The board decided to go with the tiered structure one, just because it is the one that incentivizes conservation. We were made aware that GWISA has 719 customers who are currently in their highest tier, which means they're using at least 60,000 gallons of water per month, which is about 10 times the average amount. And these are households too. So
Use that much water.
yeah. And yeah, and so that's like one of the big concerns is that is pristine drinking water that is being used to very likely irrigate like outdoor things. And so that's where they're hoping that kind of increasing the cost will incentivize people to kind of reduce or maybe make changes to their landscaping so that it is less water intensive. So looking forward to that. And that's also partly why they're looking at developing the secondary water system to see if we can use non-culinary water for irrigation in some of the new builds and kind of save that nice clean drinking water for all of us. Oh, and it looks like there will potentially be another water workshop happening at USU on February 16th. That's not 100% set in stone, at least it wasn't as of the board meeting, but this will actually be a presentation about our local infrastructure being provided by the local water service providers. So I think that'll be a really enlightening conversation and really kind of just get an insight as to the state of our water infrastructure from the people who work on it every single day.
Yeah. I'll be presenting at that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, they reached out to us.
Yeah. And I think that is all I have.
Great, thanks, Luke.
Just clarify, so is that officially scheduled then?
That's what understand the date to be, is the 16th. They were kind enough to actually adjust it a little to accommodate, I think, our schedule. So I really appreciated them setting it back a couple weeks. I'm looking forward to it. It should be a great discussion.
Colin.
Okay, thank you. Again, I really hit the ground running too. It's been a wonderful onboarding. On the 8th, the week of the 8th through the 12th, I had a meeting with the mayor at the beginning of and Luke at the beginning of the week. And then on Tuesday, I had a Trail Mix meeting. There's a lot going on. Trail Mix has kicked off again their maintenance Mondays. So first Monday of every month, there's a work day at some non-motorized trailhead or pathway. Building off the success of last year's Moab facelift event, Trail Mix is taking that on their own, and it's scheduled for April 12th and 13th. And the name chosen has been the Spring Spruce Up. And for those of you who don't know, that's there'll be between 5 and 10 projects in and around the city and in the county. And so we're in communication with Bree about that, and Mark Mattson and some other people, and trying to get some good work done on some of the recreational and active transportation infrastructure in the city and near the city. We are about to kick off again, hoping to partner with the city, and the communication's already started, but we'll be working on a active transportation and trails master plan. And coupled with this, we just brought on to the Trail Mix Committee an active transportation representative, because there is so much happening in the city and the county right now involving active transportation. We really want to give a voice to that community in the process. So that's something I'm pretty excited about. And then we are currently working with the county while we're waiting to get that process started. We're working with the county to identify access concerns for possible future easements, just access to public lands and some of the trails that we love doing that happen across private land that may someday be developed and would be a good opportunity to secure some easements. Then the following week, at the end of the week, and then I got to attend the strategic retreat, which I'm so appreciative of. It was such a wonderful opportunity to really bring myself up to speed. And I know there's been some comments from the community that assume that we were out there having a spa day, but I can assure you that it was about 16 hours of taking notes and learning every little facet of this incredibly complicated city organization. So maybe next time it could be a spa. Yeah, moving on. Then I got to go to my first solid waste board, and that's another fascinatingly complex organization there. And so some of the highlights of that meeting were one, the solid waste district is fully staffed right now, and so they're going to be cutting way down on overtime hours and actually being able to give people some time off and be able to have people ready when folks are not feeling well enough to come to work. There was an unfortunate electrical fire in one of their very important and very utilized roll-off trucks. And so that's, in their world of already having a lot of financial challenges, that's just one more kick in the leg. And then, but on a positive note, they finally got into a lockbox, or maybe a security box at a bank that had never been opened or had not been opened for many years, and realized that they had a land deed for some land they own in the Thompson area. And so there may be an opportunity for some revenue from that. It seems to be something that is many, many, many years old that could have been intended for another landfill out there in Thompson. So that's definitely a bonus. And then in the next couple of weeks, I'll be touring all the facilities and just kind of seeing how the organization works. Today I went to an UMTRA steering committee meeting. That was also really fascinating. Some of my highlights were since 2009, they've moved 14 million tons of the 16 million tons total. What's really neat about that, besides just the quantity, is that now they're really shifting their focus to clean up and starting to get some of the processes going that would normally happen after the closure, but just to sort of speed things up and hopefully be able to transfer it to the city and the county. They're just getting all of these things initiated and so moving forward with that. And then as far as the steering committee is concerned, the purpose of the steering committee for the duration of the project until now has been just keeping this community safe. And so it's an exciting time where now they're starting to look deeper into the future visioning for this amazing piece of land out there. And the county is seeking some grant funding to help build out that future plan and really make it, in my mind, a package that's very easy to present to folks when we're seeking funding, and also, working with the feds to try to smooth that transition process. And then on Thursday last week, I got to attend the MRAC open house, and I was really impressed with how Bree was communicating with the public, and I learned something about just another really passionate group of our individuals in our community and how much people care about that facility and how interested they are in it. So that's it for Colin.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Tani.
Yeah. This is just a note of clarification on our committees lists. It says on the museum that my term expires when my city council term expires. It does not. I'm a full trustee at the museum, so mine will expire like any other trustee, and I would have to reapply.
Thanks for that
Okay.
clarification.
Yeah. Okay. We were sworn in on January 2nd, then we did strategic planning the next week, it was really fun. And we have some dang old dump trucks. It's a testament that our public works department has kept those things running. So, I want to thank the staff for all of the time and effort that they put into educating us and helping us see what they do with probably less resources than they need. I went to a HASU meeting on the 18th, excuse me, and they are really busy. They're moving forward with 3 major projects, one Tract E and one Skyline Arch, and the Arroyo Crossing 3rd phase. Ben called it a legal document hell. So,
This is true.
I thought it was funny. And just because they all have their own development agreements, their own set of 400 million other documents that go with each one. So his staff is really busy with that. Cinema Court has 2 vacancies, or they did last Friday. They've got 51 on the waiting list for a 1-bedroom, 56 on the waiting list for a 2-bedroom, and 44 on the waiting list for a 3-bedroom. MAPS has 4 vacant, and they have 53 on the waiting list for a 1-bedroom and 22 for a 2-bedroom. Wingate Village doesn't have any vacant, but they have 123 on the waiting list for a 3-bedroom and 48 on the waiting list for a 4-bedroom. So housing is still very much needed, but as a little qualifier, some of those people may be on all of those lists. So it may not be quite as bad as it sounds. The Arroyo Crossing 2nd phase is tentatively ready for inspection and their C of O on February 5th. There have been some delays on that, but everything is expected to be on target for the 5th, or that's what we were told Thursday. They're working on Arroyo Crossing, the 3rd phase. The bidding closed on last Thursday on the 18th, and they are working at finishing qualifying families and getting those documents sent to USDA. And for the Skyline Arch at Arroyo Crossing, they did receive a $1.5 million Olene Walker grant. So that's good. And their office renovation over on 5th West at the old free clinic building is, they've got applications in for their building permits, and they hope to start that mid-February. That's it. It's quick.
Is that it? Thanks, Tani. For me, I attended a lot of holiday events at the end of December, which was a lot of fun. We had a C4 meeting, which, primarily the discussion was about dispatch. We'll be having a more deeper discussion among you guys soon about that. Attended a EDEB meeting to discuss potentially putting another council member, our elected servant on that board. Currently, Michael serves on that board, but in order for that to happen, they need to amend the bylaws. My suggestion was that there was 2 city reps on that board, along with Michael, so we'll see where that goes, but until they amend the bylaws, there's only 1 representative, and that'll be Michael for now. We had a Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District meeting. That was primarily about the budget and talking about maps, visioning what the district would like to see on that property. AOJ meeting, Association of Governments, the League of City and Town Legislative meeting, MAPS 2.0. And then we also had a meeting, Colin, with the Department of Energy site. That's another group. It's a smaller group of folks that are meeting directly with the DOE. It's called the End Stage Vision. And so it's pretty exciting. Like, it's hard to believe that we've gone this far, but they're expected for the dirt to be completely moved by the 2027 and that the site to be closed 2029, just around the corner. Also was at the steering committee today, and that was really interesting to hear what they're doing out there. It's pretty fascinating. Carly and I met with the National Park Service, met the new acting superintendent of the Southeast Utah Group. Her name is Lena Pace. She did put in for the permanent, and that we should be knowing if we have a new superintendent with the group here in the next few weeks. And also, I want to give a shout out to Ranger Steve Young, T-Berry. I think some of us that are in the boating community know him quite well. He received the Chris Ingle Ranger Award this year for diverse profession in the art of rangering, and to honor the life and the memory of Ranger Chris Ingle. And so he does a fabulous job, as we all know, and I just want to acknowledge that because he's a great asset to the Park Service, to the river community, and I just wanted I wanted him to know how much we appreciate his work. And that's all I have. Kind of ran through that. A lot of it's repeat, so I didn't want to get into a lot of details, but it's really great to have you guys on board and working together. And we've got a lot of work to do this year, as you heard, a lot going on. All right. Just so you guys all know, we have an executive session tonight. I generally leave a strategy session to discuss litigation, pending litigation or imminent litigation, because you never know what comes up between now and Tuesday. And so I don't want Summer to have to put out a new agenda. And so I always leave this on here because we've had times where we get a call from our attorney, you have to talk about this, it's not on the agenda. So sometimes we won't, but tonight we will. So I need a motion to go into an executive session to discuss reasonably imminent or pending litigation.
Make a motion to go into closed session to discuss reasonably imminent or pending litigation.
Thank you, Tawny. Do I have a second? Second, Luke. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
We opt out.
Yeah. 5-0. All right. Thanks, everyone.